30M. Never thought I'd be writing something like this. 2 years ago, I had what I thought was a perfect relationship with my girlfriend Mia, 29F. We'd been together for 5 years, lived together for 3, and everything seemed great. We rarely fought, had similar interests, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Our sex life was good, not mind-blowing, but satisfying, and we had built a comfortable life together in our downtown apartment with our rescue cat, Pancake. The only issue in our relationship was that I sometimes wondered what it would be like to be with other people. I'd only had 2 serious relationships before Mia, and sometimes I felt like I'd missed out on experiences that my friends had in their 20s. It wasn't that I didn't love Mia. I absolutely did, but there was this nagging feeling that I might regret not exploring more if we stayed monogamous forever. My best friend Ryan had recently opened his marriage, and he couldn't stop talking about how amazing it was. Dude, it's like having your cake and eating it too, he kept saying. He and his wife seemed happier than ever, and I started thinking maybe that could work for us too. So after months of reading about ethical non-monogamy and listening to podcasts about open relationships, I brought up the idea to Mia. I was nervous as hell, expecting her to be upset or hurt. But to my surprise, she was pretty receptive. Not enthusiastic, but willing to talk about it at least. When I first mentioned it, she told me she'd never really thought about it, but could understand why I might be curious. We spent weeks talking about boundaries, rules, and expectations. We agreed to be completely honest, prioritize our relationship above all others, and close things up if either of us became uncomfortable. We decided we'd only see other people once a month max, and we'd always check in before and after dates. Looking back, I should have noticed how Mia always seemed hesitant during these conversations. She kept asking why I wanted this, if I was unhappy with her, if there was something she wasn't giving me. I kept assuring her it wasn't about her at all, just about experiences I felt I'd missed. I remember telling her, I love you. This doesn't change that. It's just something I want to try. She went along with it, but now I realize she was just trying to be the cool girlfriend who didn't hold me back. We officially opened our relationship in January of last year. At first, it was exactly what I'd hoped for. I went on a few dates, had some fun experiences, but always came home to Mia feeling like I had the best of both worlds. I matched with this yoga instructor on Tinder who was also in an open relationship, and we hooked up a few times. It was exciting and new, but ultimately just physical. I told Mia all about it, maybe in too much detail, thinking that total honesty was the key to making this work. Mia went on a couple dates too, but didn't seem that interested in pursuing anything serious. She went out with a guy from her gym once, but said there wasn't much chemistry. Then she had coffee with someone from a dating app, but he turned out to be way older than his profile pictures. I remember feeling relieved that she wasn't hitting it off with anyone, which should have been a huge red flag about my own readiness for this arrangement. Then in March, Mia went to Chicago for a work conference. She texted me the second night, saying she'd met someone interesting at a networking event. Another marketing professional named Jason, 31M. They'd hit it off, and he'd asked her to dinner the next night. Following our rules, she was checking in with me first. I remember feeling a twinge of something, not quite jealousy, but unease, but I quickly pushed it aside. This was what we'd agreed to, right? So I texted back, have fun. Let me know how it goes, smiling face with smiling eyes, like the evolved, secure boyfriend I was pretending to be. When Mia came back from Chicago, she was different. There was a lightness to her I hadn't seen in a while. She told me about Jason, how smart he was, how they talked until the restaurant closed, how he was so passionate about his work, and had all these interesting perspectives. I nodded and smiled, but something felt off. This wasn't like her other dates. She was genuinely excited about this guy. 2 weeks later, Jason messaged Mia, saying he was coming to our city for a client meeting. She asked if she could go on a date with him, and again, following our rules, I said yes. I even helped her pick out an outfit, feeling proud of how mature and evolved our relationship was. She wore this red dress I'd always loved on her, and I remember thinking as she left that I'd never seen her look so beautiful, and she was getting dressed up for someone else. The date went well, and Jason started coming to town more frequently for work. They'd see each other once or twice a month, and Mia always told me about their dates afterward. I was happy for her. She seemed excited and energized, and I thought this proved our open relationship was working for both of us. But then things started to shift. Mia began texting Jason constantly. She'd smile at her phone in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She started dressing differently, listening to music he recommended, and talking about him all the time. Jason thinks became a regular part of her vocabulary. One night, I came home to find her watching a documentary about architecture, something she'd never shown interest in before, and she casually mentioned that Jason had recommended it because he'd studied architecture in college. I started feeling uncomfortable, but told myself I was being hypocritical. Wasn't this exactly what I'd asked for? I've been seeing other people too, so how could I complain when Mia was doing the same? But the truth was, my own interest in seeing other people had completely evaporated once I saw how much Mia was enjoying her time with Jason. The yoga instructor texted me a few times, but I made excuses and eventually stopped responding altogether. The excitement of new connections suddenly felt hollow compared to the fear of losing what I already had. By June, Mia was seeing Jason almost weekly. He'd apparently transferred to a position in our city for work reasons, though I suspected the real reason was to be closer to Mia. She started staying overnight at his place, which was within our agreed boundaries, but it still made me uneasy. I'd lie awake in our bed, Pancake curled up where Mia should be, wondering what they were doing, if she was happier with him than with me. I finally brought up my concerns one night after she'd come home from his place. I asked if maybe she was getting too involved with Jason, trying to sound casual about it. Mia looked surprised and reminded me that we'd agreed we could see other people. When I mentioned that she was seeing him a lot and wanted to make sure a relationship was still her priority, she assured me it was, and I believed her because I wanted to, but things kept changing. She started spending more weekends at his place. Our sex life dwindled from a few times a week to maybe once every 2 weeks, and even then, it felt like she was just going through the motions. When we were together, she seemed distracted, always checking her phone for messages from him. In July, we had plans to go to my parents' lake house for the 4th of July weekend, something we'd done every year since we started dating. 3 days before the trip, Mia told me Jason had invited her to go to a music festival that same weekend. I reminded her about our plans, and she had the audacity to ask if I'd mind if she skipped the lake house this year. I was floored. This was our tradition, and she was willing to break it for a guy she'd known for 4 months. We had our first major fight about it. I accused her of prioritizing Jason over me, and she accused me of being controlling and going back on our agreement. In the end, she went to the lake house with me, but she was on her phone the whole time, texting Jason and watching Instagram stories of the festival. My parents definitely noticed something was off, and I had to make up some excuse about Mia being stressed at work. In August, I suggested we close the relationship again. I told her I'd gotten what I wanted from the experience and was ready to go back to being exclusive. I tried to frame it as something I was proposing for both of us, not just because I was jealous of Jason. When I brought this up, Mia got really quiet. She told me she didn't think she wanted to do that. When I asked why not, she admitted she really cared about Jason and wasn't ready to end things with him. That was the first moment I truly realized what a massive mistake I'd made. The woman I loved was developing serious feelings for someone else, and I had no one to blame but myself. I'd opened this door and practically pushed her through it. We had a long, painful conversation that night. Mia admitted she had feelings for Jason, but insisted she still loved me too. She wanted to continue our open relationship. I reluctantly agreed, hoping her feelings for him would fade over time. They didn't. By September, Mia was spending more time with Jason than with me. She started leaving things at his apartment. First a toothbrush, then clothes, then her favorite coffee mug. Small things that signaled she was building a life with him alongside ours. I became increasingly depressed and anxious. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work, couldn't enjoy anything. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd wanted freedom and experiences, but now all I wanted was my monogamous relationship back. One night in early October, I went through Mia's phone while she was in the shower. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate to understand what was happening. Their text messages were like a knife to my heart. They weren't just sleeping together. They were making plans, sharing inside jokes, sending good morning and good night texts. There was one message from Jason that said, "I've never felt this way about anyone before," and Mia had replied, "Me neither. Me neither." After 5 years together, she was telling this guy she never felt about anyone the way she felt about him. I confronted her when she got out of the shower, admitted I'd looked at her phone. Instead of being angry about the invasion of privacy, she just looked sad, which was somehow worse. She said she hadn't wanted to hurt me, but yes, she had strong feelings for Jason. She swore she still loved me too, and was confused about what she wanted. In November, I told Mia I couldn't do it anymore. I asked her to choose between Jason and me. I told her I'd made a terrible mistake suggesting we open our relationship, and all I wanted was to go back to how things were before. She got upset and told me that wasn't fair since I was the one who wanted an open relationship in the first place. I acknowledged that I knew I was wrong and had made a mistake, but needed to know if she still wanted to be with just me. She asked for time to think, which was an answer in itself. She moved into our spare bedroom while she figured things out, but we both knew what was happening. 2 weeks later, she sat me down and told me she was in love with Jason. She hadn't meant for it to happen, but it had. She wanted to move out and see where things could go with him. I begged her to reconsider. I reminded her of our 5 years together, all our plans and memories. I promised we could work through this if she just gave us a chance. She cried and said she was sorry, but her feelings had changed. I asked if this would have happened if we'd stayed monogamous, and she admitted probably not since she never would have met him. That admission broke something in me. This wasn't just bad luck. This was the direct result of my own actions. She moved out in December, taking half her furniture and many of our shared belongings. We had to decide who would keep Pancake, and in the end, she let me have him, saying Jason was allergic to cats anyway. So I spent the holidays alone in our now sparse apartment, with only Pancake for company, surrounded by memories and regret. I spiraled pretty hard after she left. Started drinking too much, missed days at work, ignored calls from friends and family. I'd scroll through Mia's social media obsessively, torturing myself with photos of her and Jason looking happy together. There they were ice skating at the Christmas market we used to go to. There they were at a New Year's party with a bunch of people I didn't recognize. There they were on a weekend trip to the mountains, doing the hike I'd always wanted to do, but Mia had never been interested in. The worst was when I saw a comment from my friend Ryan's wife on one of their photos. "You guys are such a cute couple. We need to double date soon." The same Ryan who had convinced me open relationships were such a great idea. Now his wife was planning double dates with my ex and her new boyfriend. The betrayal cut deep. I hit rock bottom in January when I drunk texted Mia at 2 a.m., telling her I still loved her and would do anything to get her back. She responded the next morning with a gentle but firm message saying she had moved on and thought it would be best if we didn't contact each other for a while. She said she'd always care about me, but was happy with Jason and hoped I could find happiness too. That was the wake-up call I needed. I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I joined a gym, started therapy, cut back on drinking, and tried to rebuild my life. It was hard as hell, and there were many days I didn't want to get out of bed, but slowly things started to improve. In March, 3 months after Mia moved out, I ran into them at a restaurant. I was having dinner with a coworker, not a date, just a friendly dinner, and they were at a table across the room. Mia saw me first, and I watched her face fall. She clearly hadn't expected to see me there. Jason noticed her expression and turned to look at what had caused it. When he saw me, he put his arm around Mia protectively, like he thought I might cause a scene. I didn't. I nodded politely and turned back to my dinner, but inside I was dying. Seeing them together in person at a restaurant we used to go to was a whole different level of pain than seeing photos on Instagram. My coworker noticed something was wrong and asked about it. For the first time, I opened up to someone about what had happened. I expected judgment. You got what you deserve. But instead, she was kind and understanding. She shared that she'd been through something similar, and it had eventually led her to meet her husband, who was perfect for her in ways her ex never had been. That conversation was a turning point for me. It made me realize that maybe, just maybe, Mia and I weren't as perfect for each other as I thought. If she could fall for someone else so quickly and completely, perhaps there had been cracks in our foundation I hadn't wanted to see. Last week, I got a text from Mia asking if we could meet for coffee. My heart raced. Was she having second thoughts? Was this my chance to win her back? I agreed immediately, suggesting the coffee shop we used to go to together every weekend. When I got there, Mia was already waiting. She looked beautiful, but different somehow. More confident, more self-assured. We made awkward small talk for a few minutes before she got to the point. She and Jason were moving to Seattle for his job, and she wanted to tell me in person. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not only was she still with him, but now she was moving across the country with him. She said she hoped I was doing well, and that she'd always cherish our time together. Then she slid a small box across the table. Inside was the promise ring I'd given her on our 3rd anniversary. She said she thought I should have it back. As she was leaving, she hesitated, then said, "You know, I never would have considered an open relationship if you hadn't suggested it. I was content with you, but I think there were things missing that I didn't even realize until I met Jason. Maybe this was all meant to happen." And just like that, she was gone again, this time for good. I sat in that coffee shop for a long time after she left, turning her words over in my mind. Was she right? Were there things missing in our relationship that I hadn't seen? Or did I destroy something beautiful because I was too restless, too curious about what else was out there? I still don't have the answers. All I know is that I've learned my lesson in the hardest possible way. If you're in a good relationship with someone you love, appreciate what you have. The grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. I stopped watering my relationship with Mia because I was too busy looking over the fence, and now I've lost her forever. To anyone considering opening a previously monogamous relationship, really think about what you're risking. Ask yourself if you're prepared for the possibility that your partner might find someone they connect with more than you. Ask yourself if those new experiences you're seeking are worth potentially losing everything you already have. I wasn't prepared. I didn't think it through. And now I'm alone in an apartment that still feels empty, with only Pancake and my regrets for company, while Mia builds a new life with Jason on the other side of the country. Update 2 weeks later. First, thank you to everyone for all the comments and support. I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Reading your stories and advice has been both painful and healing. A lot has happened since I posted. The day after Mia told me she was moving to Seattle, I got absolutely wasted at a bar near my apartment. I don't remember much, but apparently I tried to fight a guy who looked vaguely like Jason, got thrown out, and then drunk dialed Ryan at 1 a.m. to tell him what a terrible friend he was for encouraging me to open my relationship. Not my finest moment. The next morning, Ryan showed up at my apartment with coffee and breakfast. I was still half drunk and completely mortified, but he insisted on coming in. We had the conversation we should have had months ago. Turns out, his open marriage wasn't the paradise he'd made it out to be. He and his wife had been having problems for years, and opening their relationship had been a last-ditch effort to save their marriage. They're now in couples therapy and have closed their relationship again. Why the hell did you make it sound so great then? I asked him. He looked ashamed. I guess I was trying to convince myself as much as you. And maybe I wanted someone else to be in the same boat, so I wouldn't feel so alone in it. I was angry at first, but it was hard to stay mad when I could see how much he was struggling too. We ended up talking for hours, and I realized how much I'd missed having him as a friend these past few months. The next surprise came 3 days ago when I received a friend request from someone named Olivia. The name didn't ring any bells, but when I checked her profile, I realized she was Jason's ex-girlfriend. I accepted out of curiosity, and she immediately messaged me asking if we could talk. We met at a bar downtown, and what she told me knocked the wind out of me. Apparently, Jason has a pattern of pursuing women who are already in relationships. He did the same thing to Olivia. She had been engaged when she met Jason, and he systematically worked his way into her life until she left her fiancé for him. Then, about a year into their relationship, he started becoming controlling and emotionally manipulative. When she finally broke things off, he immediately started dating another woman who was also in a relationship. I saw your ex on his Instagram and recognized the look in her eyes, Olivia told me. It's the same look I had, like he's the most amazing man in the world. I just thought you should know what kind of person he is. I didn't know what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to immediately call Mia and warn her, but another part wondered if I was just looking for an excuse to contact her, or if I'd come across as the bitter ex trying to sabotage her new relationship. I decided to sleep on it, but that night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Jason. Olivia had apparently told a mutual friend about our meeting, and that friend had warned Jason. He was furious. His text was full of threats and insults, calling me pathetic for not being able to move on and warning me to stay away from Mia. The next morning, I forwarded the text to Mia without comment. She called me an hour later, sounding upset. She asked what I was trying to do, and I explained about meeting Olivia and receiving Jason's threatening text afterward. There was a long silence on the other end. He told me he ran into Olivia and she was spreading lies about him because she's still bitter about their breakup, Mia finally said. He said she might try to contact you. That's not what happened. I told her. She reached out to me out of the blue. And does his text sound like the message of a secure, honest person? Another long silence. Then Mia said she had to go and hung up. I haven't heard from her since, and I'm not sure I will. Part of me hopes she's taking a hard look at her relationship with Jason, but another part knows it's not my place to interfere in her life anymore. She made her choice, and I need to respect that, even if I think she's making a mistake. As for me, I'm trying to focus on rebuilding my life. I've started playing basketball again with a local league, something I used to love but gave up when Mia and I got serious because she wasn't into sports. I'm reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. I've even been on a couple of dates, nothing serious, just getting to know new people. The pain is still there, but it's not as sharp as it was. Some days I can go hours without thinking about Mia. Other days, something will remind me of her, a song on the radio, the smell of her favorite coffee, pancake curling up in her spot on the couch, and it feels like losing her all over again. I still regret suggesting we open our relationship. I still wonder what would have happened if I'd been content with what we had. But I'm also starting to see that maybe Mia wasn't the perfect partner I'd built her up to be in my mind. A truly committed person doesn't fall in love with someone else at the first opportunity. Maybe there were problems in our relationship that I didn't want to acknowledge, and opening it just exposed those cracks rather than creating them. Or maybe that's just what I tell myself to make the pain more bearable. I honestly don't know anymore. What I do know is that I've learned more about myself in these past few months than in the previous 5 years. I've learned what I truly value in a relationship. I've learned that excitement and novelty are poor substitutes for trust and commitment. And I've learned that sometimes you have to lose something precious to understand its true worth. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Mia will realize Jason isn't who she thought he was. Maybe she'll be blissfully happy with him. Maybe I'll meet someone who makes me forget all about her. Or maybe I'll always carry a piece of her with me. All I can do is keep moving forward one day at a time and try to be a better person than I was yesterday. And if my story prevents even one person from making the same mistake I did, then at least some good will have come from all this pain. Update. 6 months later. I wasn't planning on updating again, but so much has happened that I felt I needed to share. First, thank you to everyone who has reached out with support and shared their own stories. It's been incredibly helpful to know I'm not alone in this experience. About 2 months after my last update, I received a call from Mia. She and Jason had moved to Seattle as planned, but things weren't going well. She didn't go into details, just said she was reconsidering some things and wanted to know how I was doing. We had a brief, somewhat awkward conversation. I told her about my new job, I'd switched companies for a better opportunity, and mentioned I was dating casually, but nothing serious. She seemed pleased for me, but also a little sad. A month after that call, she texted me saying she and Jason had broken up. She didn't want to discuss it over text, but asked if we could talk sometime. I suggested a video call the following weekend, which gave me time to process my feelings. Part of me was secretly pleased their relationship had failed, but another part genuinely felt bad for her. I knew how painful breakups could be, especially after moving across the country for someone. During our video call, Mia looked tired but determined. She explained that after they moved to Seattle, Jason had become increasingly controlling. He'd get upset when she wanted to make friends or pursue her own interests. He'd check her phone and question her about male colleagues. The final straw came when she discovered he'd been messaging other women on dating apps, using the same lines he'd used on her. When I confronted him, she said, "He told me I had no right to be upset since I'd left you for him. He said if I could do it once, I'd do it again, so he was just getting ahead of the game." She looked down, ashamed. He basically admitted he never trusted me because of how we got together. I felt a complex mix of emotions, vindication that Jason had shown his true colors, sadness for Mia's pain, and a strange sense of closure. What goes around comes around, I guess. Mia told me she was planning to stay in Seattle despite the breakup. She made friends there and loved her new job. We ended the call on good terms, wishing each other well. Over the next few months, Mia and I texted occasionally. Nothing flirtatious, just friendly updates. She was healing from her relationship with Jason and focusing on herself. I was continuing to rebuild my life and had started seeing someone named Claire who I'd met through my basketball league. Last month, Mia came back to town to visit her parents and asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I discussed it with Claire first, who was understandably a bit wary but trusted me enough to be comfortable with it. Claire's confidence in our relationship made me realize how far I'd come from the insecure person who'd pushed for an open relationship. Meeting Mia in person after all this time was strange, but not as painful as I'd expected. We talked for hours, catching up on each other's lives and reflecting on our relationship and its end. She apologized for how things had played out, and I apologized for suggesting the open relationship in the first place. You know, she said toward the end of our conversation, part of me wonders what would have happened if we'd just stayed together. If we'd worked through our issues instead of opening things up. I thought about it for a moment before responding. I think we both needed to learn these lessons, even if learning them hurt like hell. I don't think I would have understood what I really wanted in a relationship if I hadn't lost you. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I think you're right. I didn't know what I wanted either. I thought Jason was everything I'd been missing, but it turned out he was just new and exciting. What we had was real, even with its flaws. We parted with a hug, both of us knowing that chapter of our lives was truly closed. There was no going back, no rekindling what we had. Too much had happened, and we both changed too much. But there was forgiveness and understanding, which was more than I'd ever expected. When I got home that night, Claire asked how it went. I told her everything honestly, including the bittersweet feeling of seeing Mia again. Claire listened attentively, then took my hand. "Thank you for being honest with me," she said. "I think it says a lot about both of us that we can talk about this without it becoming a big drama." She was right. My relationship with Claire is different from what I had with Mia. Not better or worse, just different. We communicate more openly, set clearer boundaries, and don't take each other for granted. I've learned to appreciate what I have instead of wondering what I'm missing. And most importantly, I've learned that true commitment isn't about limiting your options. It's about choosing the same person every day because you want to, not because you have to. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Be honest with yourself about what you truly want and need in a relationship. Don't chase excitement at the expense of stability. Don't take for granted the love you already have while looking for something new. And if you're considering opening a relationship, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and that both of you are fully on board, not just going along with it to make the other person happy. I lost something precious because I didn't understand its value until it was gone. But in losing it, I gained wisdom I couldn't have found any other way. And for that, despite all the pain, I'm grateful.